Welcome to episode 21 of Mental Mastery, where we interview the world's greatest minds and what it takes to live an epic life. I'm your host Max Weigand, and today I'm joined by one of my personal heroes and host of the Inner Changemaker podcast, Wong. I found Jay through this amazing podcast and was immediately in love with his energy and amazing insights into becoming the best version of yourself. So I'm super excited, guys, to share this episode with you. I hope you get as much value out of it as I did from shooting it and talking to Jay. So let the show begin.
So Jay, so excited to have you on the show. And I told you before, I've been following the Inner Changemaker, your amazing podcast, for nearly 2 years now. I think really what sets it apart is like this positive energy, this like huge like enthusiasm and positivity that you bring to the show, you know? I mean, there's so many incredible lessons, so many incredible entrepreneurs and all that stuff. But really what sets it apart is, I think, your energy. And so whenever I meet people that have like this charisma, you know, that aura around them, it's like my first question is always like, what are the like routines, the habits that you have cultivated in your life in order to create this energy on a daily basis? Because I'm a huge believer that like we don't have energy, we create it in ourselves, right? By like using the right mindset. So what are some of the like habits you've created in your life to cultivate that in yourself?
Yeah. And, you know, first off, Max, I appreciate, that we finally got a chance to connect.
Yeah,
I know. It was, we're both traveling and, we're both making this happen. And I think it's a brilliant question. And one thing you brought up was one of the first things I learned back in the day. And I'm pretty sure it came from Brendon Burchard, where he had this analogy where he said, you have to understand that the power plant doesn't have energy, right? Because most people, they think of power plant and they think of energy, right? It's like, doesn't have energy. It generates energy, right? And so right off the bat, it's you're responsible, right? For the amount of energy that you show up with, right? You're responsible. And I think it's just taking, I think people conceptually understand that sentence, right? But what I really want people to understand, it's like, hey, look, you take responsibility of your energy. You also take responsibility of your life. Right? You take responsibility of your brand. You take responsibility of how you do anything it's how you show up. Right? I always, one of the first things that I learned from one of my first mentors, Chris, was, excellence is a habit. Right? And so to answer your question, like energy, charisma, positivity, all of these are just habits. They're just what you default to. Right? Because if you keep trying to, in the beginning, it's kind of like if you go to the gym, right? And you're going out there and like you're doing all these workouts and you're doing all these things that your body's not used to. What's going to happen? Like your body's going to get kind of sore. You know what I mean? Your muscles are breaking apart and they're trying to rebuild itself, right? After you do that for a while, that's just kind of what you do. I kind of go to the gym. I go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Like you just tell people your schedule, right? And the people are like, oh my God, how do you look like that? It's not science. It's not rocket science, right? It just simply is them showing up on a consistent basis and being able to step into that, right? And so for me, I've put myself in different situations over the last few years and really my entire life to be able to show up in rooms, whether it's like dinners or whether it's like conferences or whether it's like interviews like this or whatever it is, like to show up with excellence, to show up with energy, to show up with the intention of being able to serve your audience, of being able to, help one person that's watching this or listening to this and just say, hey, like maybe you could step up with excellence, with the next thing you're doing. Maybe you could show up with just a little more energy, a little more presence, right? Because those are the intangibles. You know what I mean? People could say, they could download the transcript, they could say the same words, right? But it's that extra oomph. It's that extra presence. That's what sucks people in. And it has nothing to do with me, right? And I'm really glad that, that you shared with me that you listened to the podcast for the last couple of years. I'm really happy that it's made a difference for you. I'm always
for sure, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm always super blown away by that. But I always emphasize for people, it's like, look, you're not actually listening to me. Like it's not about me and it's not about you on this journey, right? It's about how are you able to make a difference for others, right? And when I say it's not about me and you're not listening to me, what I really mean is that I've been fortunate enough to be in really, really great conversations, right? And you have been fortunate enough to be in some really great conversations as well, which is why which is why I believe having a podcast nowadays is the ultimate hack, not just in business, but it's in life, because what you're hearing is the accumulation of insights and perspectives that I've gotten over the last 500, 1,000, 2,000 conversations. And it's just a built up of that. You know what I mean? Some of these things I'm sharing with you, it's not because like I came up with them. It's not because like I wrote them down or I innovated the thing. It's because I've been in those conversations. I've executed some of those things. I've listened a lot, right? And now when you're asking me these things, I could draw onto those experiences and be able to share that for people, right? So I hope that answered your question.
Oh, for
like
sure,
in terms of showing up
that, yeah.
and how that makes a difference.
No, definitely. Really good points you're making here. Two things I really want to touch upon. First thing is what he's saying about, just learning, kind of like standing on the shoulders of giants, right? I found this really just incredibly useful, right? Because what's interesting to me is like we all, most people have the same kind of goals in life, right? They want to, create a business or be good at a job. They want to have good relationships. They want to get fit. And the information is always there, right? Like the information is available out there. Like would it really, any goal, unless, you want to, you're Elon Musk and you want to go to Mars.
Yeah.
Someone else on this earth has already accomplished what you want to do in your life. Yeah. And so it's really about like finding a blueprint, right? Like learning from other people that have already gone the whole distance, right? And learning from that and then taking those lessons and applying them to your life. So that one, truly, truly good point. And the secondly, I want to touch upon is kind of how you said it's a habit, right? Like getting yourself in this peak state every single day. It's a habit, right? Because what I found also in my life is like in the beginning, it feels so uncomfortable, right? Like you almost like feel like you're lying to yourself, right? Like whenever I tell people, get in peak state, like use your physiology, change your focus and stuff, they're like, isn't this like fake, right? Like, isn't this like, if I'm trying to like get in a certain state, isn't that fake? And I think so it's really about, creating this habit over and over again to the point where it doesn't feel fake anymore, right? And so do you have any advice for people that are trying to like get started on this journey? Like what's the first step people can take in order to really get themselves in the peak state every single day?
Yeah. So there's a saying that I love. I believe it was Sean Stevenson who came on my podcast and told me this, which is common sense is not common practice, right? And I know people have heard this so many times. Some of my students,
but it's so true.
It's so true. It's so true because to your point, we're living in a world where I would argue that we are drowning in content, right? There is more content than we have hours and minutes to consume. Right? Look at Instagram, look at YouTube, look at podcasts, look at the amazing amount of content. So all that is phenomenal, right? Because now we're living in this age where information is pretty much getting to the point where it's so abundant, it's so free, right? But why are people still lacking the results? Right? If it was information that would answer your question, then everybody would be rich, ripped, living in abundance, living the life they want, right? So clearly it's not about the information, not about the content, but it's about the context. Right? And what that means is that it's about your context in your life, right? How do you take information and apply it, integrate it in one's life, right? And so to really simple, like couple simple things, like really simple things, okay? To integrate right away, you can do this as you're listening to this interview. Number one, let me ask you, how much water have you drank today? How much water have you drank today? Right? People are now like, oh crap. How did he know? How did he know? Right? Look, the thing about this is that most of the time when you are feeling like you have a little bit of brain fog, right? Or you feel like a little bit sluggish, there's a good chance that you haven't taken enough oxygen in your body and you haven't taken enough H2O, water, right? So much of your body is made up of water, right? And I think for me, one of the first things I do every single morning is that I have a great little thing of water, like a 1 liter water bottle that I carry with me, a little Nalgene like bottle. And I chug that first thing I do in the morning. And what it tells my body, it's a reminder actually. Yes, we're hyperhydrating. Yes, we're getting water we're cleansing out our whole systems without going into like the whole geeky and science part of it. What I'm also doing is I'm subconsciously telling myself that I'm in abundance. We have abundance of water here, right? It's the first thing that I do because I step into that. Do you see what I'm doing? Yeah. Right? And so right away, it triggers all these emotions. It gets your whole like body and your brain moving. Right? So number one is how much water are you intaking? right? I do about like 2-3 liters every single day. You don't need to go crazy, but chances are you're not hydrating enough. And that's part of the reason you're getting that brain fog. It's part of the reason why you start out really strong and you might fade in the later halves of the day, right? And what we are looking for is ultimate high performance. We're looking for a consistency in how you show up in your videos and how you show up in your content, how you show up in your meetings, how you show up in your life, right? Because if you can figure out how to be consistent, that's going to be the key to everything else. And that's really the second thing, which is, we talked about water, we talked about, oxygen, but I would say the big thing that I think a lot of times people miss out on is just being consistent in when you go to sleep and when you wake up.
Oh,
this is not something I'm always perfect at because we travel so often. So we switch different time zones and different things. But look, let me tell you, your life will be a lot easier if you can get into a stage where you can just go to sleep at a certain time and you can wake up at a certain time and you can get into a rhythm of that. It builds momentum, right? It's kind of like you work out one day, that's okay, right? If you work out 2 days, it's like, whoa, that's kind of cool, right? Work out 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. Now there's something at stake for you not to lose, right? You have this like streak that's going on, right? So the same thing with like your sleep schedule. It's easy to fall out of a sleep schedule if you're in the holidays or if you're traveling, right? But once you kind of get that going again, that's going to be a huge thing of making sure you have and you show up once again on a consistent basis. So 2 very basic things, but I find a lot of times, especially entrepreneurs that are young or just starting out, they're trying to do all the big things right without doing the fundamentals right. And these are the fundamentals.
Oh, for sure. I love that. What you're saying here, really getting the fundamentals right. I mean, at the end of the day, really it's about getting your health right, your energy right every single day. And everyone knows what to do, right? We all know eat healthy, hydrate, sleep well, exercise. And I think if you get those basics right, and I don't think most people do, most people I think are failing very miserably in all of these areas, really getting the health right and really getting the energy right. But if you can do it consistently, I think it's going to be a huge game changer. So love what you're saying here about getting the basics, really focusing on that.
Yeah. Well, it goes for everything. You know what I mean? Consistency, my friends, is what will make or break your brand. It's what will make or break you as an entrepreneur. It's what will make or break you as a person, right? I would argue that if you are, let's say, for example, you don't have the body that you want, right? Let's say you look at the mirror and you go, I dislike what I'm seeing in the mirror, right? I think I'm out of shape. I don't have the body I want. Chances are you fell out of consistency of what? Maybe going to the gym, maybe eating right, getting the right nutrition in your body. Let's say you constantly are fighting with your partner, right? Or you're constantly, going from one relationship to the next. Chances are you fell out of consistency of date night. You fell out of consistency of open communication, right? These are just, they're all basic things. We all know how to do all these, right? If your business is not generating the results you want, chances are you fell out of consistency with creating great content. You fell out of consistency of taking that content and connecting it to an offer, a promotion, something that you're doing, right? It's pretty basic. You know what I mean? And so if we can do that, things right, it's going to make a world of difference.
Oh, 100%. Really get the basics right, and everything else will fall into place.
Yeah.
Now, Jay, I'm really curious. I mean, you talk a lot about your theme of legacy over currency. And I think one of the challenges that most people, especially entrepreneurs, face is like not so much the outward success, not so much like the financial success and all that, but really how do I create a life that I love every single day, right? How do I wake up with energy and excitement and I'm truly happy and fulfilled? So can you tell me a little bit more about how we can create that in our lives?
Yeah. Max, I think it's a really, really great question. And I think it's one of those questions that I'm going to tell you what I did. Right. And before I do that, I would like to remind you that all of us have suffered through specific traumas. All of us have gone through our own hardships and trials and tribulations. And so you're going to have to find what works for you. Right. But I know for me, when I grew up, I didn't have like the cool like entrepreneur story of like selling lemonade or baseball cards or like having like this hustle, right? But one thing that happened for me was that my parents were entrepreneurs, and in some ways it's not even like they wanted to be entrepreneur. It's not like the stage now where everybody's like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, or like, I want to be an entrepreneur, or that it's a cool thing.
It wasn't that cool thing, yeah.
They did it from a survival standpoint. They did it because they wanted to be great parents. You know, they immigrated from Hong Kong and China, 30 years of age, right? Came to a country that they didn't even speak the language of, Canada. Wow. You know? And, you know, if you've ever been to Canada, most people's perceptions of Canada is that it's super cold. Let me tell you, it is super cold, especially during the winter. In Canada, in the spring and the summer, it's beautiful, right? But they came in during the winter, right? And can you just imagine just the shock?
Total culture shock, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, total culture shock. Like, just as if you've never been to China or you didn't grow up in these places and you went over there, you would be culture shocked as well. And what they were trying to do is what I think every great parent tries to do, which is just provide as much opportunity for their sons, their daughters, and give them opportunities that they wish they had. You know, I think every parent at the bottom line wants to be able to do that, you know,
sure.
And I watched my parents be successful, you know, with their business ventures. They had like a convenience store. This is back in like the 1990s, right? Oh, yeah. And so my brother and I, we grew up, you know, in this like convenience store. We had like the local customers and everything. But I also watched them fail. You know, at one point they transitioned out of that. We had moved to the US and they were running this restaurant, this Chinese restaurant. And it wasn't going very well. You know, each month there was more debt accumulating, and up to the point where my father had to make that decision of calling it quits. And on top of that, they ended up actually declaring bankruptcy.
Oh, God.
For both my parents. And so that I was about 16 years old when that happened. And when I watched that, you know, one thing happened for me, which is I said, you know, I don't know if I could have saved. I was like the total, you know, every teenager, you know, like probably feels like this at some level, but I was completely rebellious. You know what I mean? Didn't want to, you know, at some levels, didn't even want to be associated with my own culture. You know what I mean? I wanted to fit in. I wanted to figure out who I was. I wanted to figure out who my identity was, who my friends were. You know what I mean? In high school, everything seems so important, right? In your world. But when that happened, and when my family was put into like a financial difficulty, and I would say they're still in some ways recovering from that. I kind of took it upon myself then to say, hey, you know what? I don't know if I could have changed anything about this outcome, but maybe I can do a little better. You know, maybe I can get a little smarter. Maybe I could learn, you know, about how business works, about how this could be prevented down the line. You know, I remember, you know, hugging the whole family and everybody's crying and, you know, we're figuring out all these things about bankruptcy and like we have to sell the building and like all these things. Like we didn't even know what was going to happen in the next few months. Right. And so from there, I really took a responsibility. Once it kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning of saying, hey, whatever you've gone through, you could leverage that pain. You can leverage whatever you've gone through to actually use it to make yourself a better person. You know, I went through business school. I learned how business actually worked. And then when I graduated, I figured out that everything they taught you in business school actually is not as relevant as you would imagine. Right? But it doesn't matter. You know, you're going to have wins. You're going to have losses. You're going to have months that you're up. You're going to have months that you're down. And it's going to be a really long journey because you're going to have to be that person. You're going to be there. There's a really great quote that I love from, super famous book, like top 5 book, read in the world, The Alchemist.
Oh yeah. Paulo Coelho. Yeah.
Paulo Coelho. And there's a quote in there. I'll paraphrase, right? Because it is a fictional novel, but great book. If you haven't read it, go check it out. There's a quote in there. It says, everything that you begin in life begins with beginner's luck, but everything ends with you getting tested on everything. So wow. It's a quote for me. What it represents is mastery, right? If you don't have the level of success that you want in your business or in your life, doesn't matter which department it is, chances are you haven't become the person where that success is normalized, right? Where that is an expectation and not an intention, right? And so for me, I'm very much in the process. I'm very much in progress of going after what it is that I want. I just want to be able to share my whole journey along the way. But for individuals that are listening and watching this, I mean, you're going to have to, for you to be able to show up, you know what I mean? With excellence, with consistency, you're going to have to find that pain. You're going to have to find whatever stories you've gone through, and you're going to have to find that to trigger yourself, to say, hey, I'm going to use this so that I'm going to become a better person every single day. I'm going to become better. And not so that you won't feel pain or you won't feel fear or you won't feel anxiety. All those are human emotions. It's going to come. It never goes away. But could you be better? Could you take responsibility? Could you deliver of greater excellence? And that's one of the things that my family and we always talk about. We always, want each other to be able to create and increase our own productivity, our own high performance, and our own excellence.
Wow, that is so powerful what you just said about taking that pain, right? Feeling that pain and then taking that on and using it to transform yourself into something more powerful, into something better, a better version of yourself. That is so powerful. And I think if people can understand that, is that like the challenges in your life, oftentimes like the biggest, reason for growth, right? Like people change with pain, right? Like whenever, I think we live in a culture today where like people are so afraid of pain, right? Like we drown it out in like food and, social media and TV and drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. But if you can take the pain and like you use it to, create a bigger vision for your life, right? And say like, because of this pain, not in spite of it, but because of this pain, because I went through this, I'm going to, create this better life for myself. That is so powerful. I love that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that Lisa Nichols taught me in our interview, I had a great interview with Lisa, and she says, your mess becomes your message, right? And your test becomes your testimony, So I think a lot of times people run away from, they want to hide. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about the breakup. They don't want to talk about the bankruptcy. They don't want to talk about the divorce. They don't want to talk about how they were made fun of in high school. Like, you should talk about those things, because guess what? A lot of people have gone through those things. Yeah. A lot of people have gone through being the loser in high school, college, and life, whatever. That makes you even more relatable, right? That's the key right there. You know what I mean? If you can show up in doing that, because so many people go, wow, how was that person able to do it? I feel like crap because, they're playing the victim, but this person is using the same tests, right, to let that be their testimony. And I think that's a really strong frame.
Oh, I love that for sure. There's this amazing quote by Leonardo DiCaprio. He said, every next level of your life demands a different version of you, right? And so it's like whenever like you want to level up, like you have to like level up. You have to update your belief systems, your mindset, your routines, your habits, right? Like you have to get clear on like, where's that pain in my life, right? And then continuously like update that, right? And like grow out of that. So what are some of like the biggest mindset shifts? I know like you've created, several businesses in your life. You've had huge success with your podcast now. Yeah. Like, what are some of the biggest mindset shifts that you have to get in order, to get to where you are today?
Yeah. So so there's two. There's two that come to mind immediately, and I love to go a little deeper into each.
Oh, for sure.
So one, we kind of touched on this already, which is the intention versus expectation. And I drill this in for students that work with us in our programs. I said, hey, how many of you want to be successful? Right? Everybody raises their hand, right? Everybody's like, yeah, I want to be successful.
Yeah, sure.
How many of you want to 10x your business? Right? Everybody's like, yeah, I can 10x my life would be so much better. So there's a great quote out there that says, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? I'll say that again. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. So what does that mean? It means that who doesn't want to lose that extra 5-10 pounds? Who doesn't want six-pack abs or to 10x their business or to be able to have the best version of themselves show up? Everybody wants those things, right? But not everybody gets those things. Why? Everybody's intention is not strong enough. Everybody wants to do things. Every year, at the end of the year, right, people make these New Year's resolutions, right? How many times, right? I think there's a stat that says like 2/3 of people give up their New Year's resolution by the end of the first month.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
so can you imagine that,
it's
right?
Devastating, yeah.
So what's different? What do the high performers do? What do successful people actually do? They don't intend on being successful. They don't intend on these things. They expect it. You get in life what you expect, right? Have you ever met someone that says, you know what? Whenever I go to the parking lot, I never have luck with finding parking. You ever met someone like that, right?
Yeah,
or
they never get it.
Yeah, they
never find a spot.
right? You always get what you you always get what you expect, right? Some people, they go, oh, I never do well doing this thing. Well, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to, how could it possibly even deviate, right? How can there be possibly a different scenario, right? It was Albert Einstein that says, if insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So if you're going into the new year, if you are going into this quarter, if you're looking at your business, you're looking at your life, and you are intending to do well, I guarantee you nothing is going to change. But if you expect to do well, if you say it with certainty of saying, hey, I expect to do well, I expect to show up with excellence, I expect to have a world-class mindset, I expect to be living in abundance, what do you think is going to happen?
You're going to get it all.
Different. Probably something different, right? You might get there. Chances are you might not. But it's about doing something different. It's about getting new information, applying it, new information, applying it over and over again, right? And so that's how you're going to get a different result. So that's mindset number one. Does that make sense? Right?
For sure. I think this expectancy is so powerful, right? Because, I mean, if you think about it, like, if you don't expect to succeed at something, you're never going to put in the work, right? Yeah. If you don't expect to finish that marathon or to build that business, whatever it is, if you don't expect to, pass that test, then why bother trying, right? And so the first key, I think, to really being motivated and taking action is that expectancy. So I love that.
Yeah.
What's the second one?
Yeah. So the second one, it's a kind of a funny story, but I hope it's going to be relatable to everybody here. When I started out, I went to this conference, and for me, I had this vision. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to do this. I didn't know how to do an interview. I didn't know how to upload a video. I didn't know how to send out a broadcast email. I didn't know how to do anything that I pretty much do on a daily basis these days, right? I didn't know any of those things, but I had this vision that I wanted to be able to go out, use my gifts. And I thought I had great gifts and communication and presence, some of these things that I leverage, really hard in my life, in my podcast and what have you. But I would always share with people. And this was a few months just starting out. I said, hey, everyone, I know you don't know me now, but I'm the equivalent of Asian Tony Robbins, right? That was what I would I'd go and meet people. I'd go to the
Asian Tony Robbins.
I'm I have zero business. I have zero product. There's no content. You know what I mean? But I'm Asian Tony Robbins, right?
Oh man.
total, in some ways arrogance, right? But I remember I was at this conference and I was quite humbled by this experience. And I shared with once again, it was a little group, right? No one knew who I was. I didn't know. I think they didn't know who each other. It was one of these conferences. Everyone's trying to get to know each other, and people are sharing about what they do. This person runs an agency. This person, is really successful author. This person runs a great YouTube channel. And then it came to my turn, and I said what I just told you guys, right? I just said, hey, you don't know who I am.
What's the reaction like?
I'm going to be like Asian Tony Robbins. People are like, okay,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, I'm here to learn. What I said was, I'm here to learn how to be able to deliver with excellence and how to be a world-class speaker, right? That's what I said. I said, I'm here to learn. I wasn't too cocky to say that I wasn't, available to learn. And one lady, she was just kind of on the side, right? So she came into the little circle. She was eating a banana or something, right? And she was like, hey, do you mind if I share something with you? Mind if I just comment, right? And I'm like, sure, whatever, go for it, right? What's the big deal? And she said, so you don't know who I am, but I coach little girls and that do ice skating. And I coach them. Some of the people I've coached, they went as far as the Olympics. Wow. And they won medals. And so she was this Olympian ice skater coach, right? And she goes, can I just tell you that the people that end up winning medals down the line, and I went and I was training them from the very beginning. She goes, they didn't learn how to be world class. They were world class from day one.
Wow.
They were world class when they were 6 years old. They were world class in how they showed up in practice when they were 6 years old. They were world class in the way that they fell and got back up. And fell again and got back up and fell again and got back up. So they were world class from the very beginning. She goes, it's okay that you're just starting out, right? But you can make a decision today. Are you going to be world class now? Or are you going to try to learn to be world class? And that was a huge thing for me. it shut me up, right? Like I was very quiet. The whole crowd, like one of those. But it taught me in that moment that, you know what? There's nothing wrong with my dreams. The only thing is, am I going to step into that now as in identity, as in I'm world-class today? And it doesn't mean that I'm going to be perfect, right? But it means that I'm going to show up, right, with excellence. I'm going to choose to do that today without knowing anything. You know what I mean? With all the unknowns out there, I'm going to do that today, right? Because that's who I am, right? Very, very powerful mindset. And it was total game changer for me, especially right in the beginning.
Wow. Yes. So much. I love that. So one of the things I find interesting is like, whenever people try to be successful, there's this lag time, right? Like this time, like you're putting in the work, like for example, you're going to the gym for the first time and you're not going to see anything, right? And you go again and again and again. And for the first 2 or 3 weeks, you're not going to see anything at all. And I think that's the stage where most people quit, right? Where they say like, oh, I want to, be the next Tony Robbins or be whatever it is, but they don't see the results yet. Not realizing that like it's the process, right? It's like showing up with excellence, showing up like Tony Robbins every single day. And that is such a powerful idea, I think. It's like every day is game day, right? I was talking to Shannon Miller the other day. She won like 2 Olympic gold medals in gymnastics. And she shared with me, she won. She was the best in the world at age 16, right? Because she'd been training every single day since she was 5, like a world-class athlete. Yeah. And one of the things she shared with me is like, every day is game day, right? Like there's no day off. There's no, one day in 10 years I'm going to put in the work. One day in 10 years I'm going to be great. It's like today, right? Today, at least 24 hours. That's what I'm going to use to become world class, to be the best in the world, right? To out-train everybody else, to out-sleep everyone else, to out-eat everyone else, to out-recover everyone else. Everything, I can do today, that's what I have to do today. So truly powerful story you're sharing here.
Yeah. I mean, it's, once again, it's, some of these things are so small. It's all in nuance, right? And if you could make that shift, right, in identity, if you could show up with expectation in your voice, right, you just show up differently. Because once you start realize, after you're done listening to this or watching this or whatever, like you like integrated this and hopefully you're taking some notes or what have you, go out to the rest of the world and just look. Don't judge, but just look, observe, right? Look at how the rest of the world operates. You don't have to judge. No one's asking if they're right or wrong. No one's asking your opinion of it. I'm just saying, how are people operating? Are they living the lives that you want, right? Are they getting the results that you want, right? Look at the people that you aspire to be, look at what they're doing. How are they showing up? How do they walk into a room, right? Look, there was a really great, I think it was like a 2012 convocation speech by Neil Gaiman, and one of my favorite authors. And I remember the speech listening all the way back then, but he ended the speech with like a little thing like this. He was talking to like an art school and he said, go out to the world and be confident and, be confident in your decision and do your best, right? Like do your best, go out to the world, kind of generic, like great advice. And he goes, look, if you don't know what the right thing to do is, if you don't know what the next step is, pretend you're the type of person that does know what the next step is. Pretend you're the type of person that is confident and do what that person would do, right? Yeah. And you're going to be okay. So I always think about those things and it's like, you know what? I think it's okay to not know. It's okay to have fear, but people that are living an exceptional life, that are doing the things that they want, are serving the people they want, creating the content they want. There's all these little things that they're doing, and you have to just watch a little closer to see them, and it's going to make a world difference for sure.
Oh, for sure. And I love the point you're making about kind of acting as if, right? Like even if you haven't figured out everything, like try to be that person, right? Like whether you're an athlete, try to work out, even if you don't feel like it yet, right? And like then it's about consistently like growing into the kind of person that is able to achieve the results that you want in life, right? So even if you're not, in the beginning of where you are and who you want to be, it's like about constantly like acting as if you're the person. Ask yourself like, is this the kind of person that can achieve that goal? Is that what they would do, right? Like if you want to be an athlete, like would an athlete do this, right? Like would an athlete like eat this food or run like this or go to the gym or whatever it is, right? How do you spend your time? So truly powerful idea. Now, Jay, tell me a little about being a change maker. What do you mean by that? And what are some steps that, especially young entrepreneurs can take to become change makers and to really empower the world?
Yeah. So it's really funny because when I started my podcast, I didn't have a definition, right? I didn't have like a value system or any of this stuff. But once again, I just started it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was
and it comes afterward. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to figure this out. So what I did was I asked millionaires, billionaires, New York bestsellers, Olympia, right? Like just kind of like yourself. I asked them, hey, how would you define change maker? Tell me. Let me hold on. Let me get my notebook really quick, right? Like, oh, okay, that's how you would see it, huh? Okay, so that's what I would do, right? And after I accumulated all these answers, and the more I talked about it, the more I shared about it, the more I realized that look, change makers are not individuals that simply say, from an esoteric point of view, go, oh, I want to one day change the world, right? That's okay. That's good. Everybody wants and says that on some level. Bring it a little closer to home, right? A change maker is someone who wants to become the best version of themselves so that they can impact those closest to them. So think about your brothers and sisters, your boyfriend and girlfriend, your close friends, your family. How can you just be a leader for them? Don't even worry about the world. Don't worry about any of that right now. Just be a leader in those settings, right? And if you can impact and influence those people, maybe you can do it in your community, right? Maybe you can do it on a bigger stage. Maybe you can impact your state, you can impact your country, and maybe, just maybe, one day you might be able to change the world. But it doesn't start there, right? I think a lot of people, they get it confused with like, hey, let's start with like the big vision. And it's good, but what's even better is if you could integrate it into your daily life, right? And so, for people that are watching this that say, hey, I want to step into the best version of myself, right? I think the number one thing is you have to understand what your gifts are, right? What you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. You know what I mean? I might be really good running a podcast, but you probably don't want me fixing your plumbing or your sink or anything. Like you just probably don't want me to do it, right? There's probably someone better that does it, right? So you could be doing all the right things, but if you're focused and doing the wrong task, right, that doesn't serve you. So I think number one is really understanding what your gifts are. We have a terminology that I borrow from Dan Sullivan called unique ability, right? What's your genius? What's like the thing that you can endlessly do that's going to always give you back energy, that you can always see areas of improvement in, that you can constantly do it every single day? You might not know who I am, but by watching and listening to this interview, you can go, this guy can probably do this for the rest of today and probably tomorrow and probably tomorrow, right? Like I can do this endlessly, right? Tomorrow, I'm emceeing a wedding. I've never emceed a wedding, right? It's okay. Wow. It's all good. You know what I mean? Because it's in my unique ability, right? My brain all the time, it's working out ideas. It's capturing all these stories and quotes. Like I don't even need to, like, right? Just like to your point, like you don't need to get ready if you stay ready. You know what I mean? And so that's number one, is like, you have to realize what your gifts are, what your genius is. And you have to do your best to try to start doing those more, right? And not doing less of things that suck energy from you, right? So like, I'm not a very good, just because I went to business school doesn't make me a good accountant, right? Yeah. I probably shouldn't be doing my own finances. Maybe in the beginning you have to, right? But eventually you want to have someone on your team or someone that you want to be doing that for you. Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure. Such great points you're making here. Yeah. Especially I love that point about like starting small, of what you said, before this point is like about starting like wherever you are, right? Because it's, especially in, today's age where like with social media and stuff, where you can have all these people, these influencers with like millions of followers, right?
Yeah.
When you're starting out, it feels like you're not making a single impact, right? When you get 10 views or 20 views or 100 views or whatever, it feels like you're not making any difference, right? But I think it always comes down to, taking it back to like real life. And it's like, today I met one of my friends in Italy, and he shared with me that he quit smoking and started running because I inspired him this summer. Awesome. And so it's like, it's these small things, right? Like one person, if you can change one person's life for the better, I think that's a huge shift, right? Like you don't need to start out like inspiring the whole world and like changing millions of people's lives.
Yeah.
If you can take one person and like help them live a better life or help them, you know, in any way possible, I think that's already a big win.
Yeah.
So
I love that you bring that up. It is about chunking it down, right? It's like, if you want to write a book, don't make your goal of writing a book, right? Like make your goal, I'm going to wake up every morning and I'm going to write one paragraph. Like something so simple that like, you're like, that's like a joke, right? Chances are if you do that, let's say that was your goal, right? Chances are if you do that, you're not going to stop writing after one paragraph. Right?
Yeah, so
it's about the habit. It's about the habit of doing it, waking up and doing it, right? If you want to one day be on like a strongman competition, it's good to have that as a goal, but it's better if you just say, I'm going to wake up earlier and go work out at the gym for 20 minutes every day, right? And I'm just going to focus on, today I'm going to focus on biceps, tomorrow triceps, tomorrow shoulders, right? And like, start doing that. You know what I mean? And you don't even have to do that. Like, just get on the floor right now and do push-ups. Right? You know why? Because at minimum, it's connecting. You said you want to do something, and then you went and you did it. Yeah. And your brain is making that connection, right? I say I want to do something, and I go and do it. I say I want to do something, and then I go do it. You become that type of person that whatever you say, you're going to do.
Love this. It's really about creating those systems, right? I know you had James Clear on a podcast 2 weeks ago or so, right? It's all about creating those systems in your life, right? Not so much focusing on the end goal, but really, what can I do today to become the kind of person that is worthy and capable of achieving that goal? So really powerful point.
Yeah.
Now, Jay, on this show, I always love to celebrate failures. So do you have a favorite failure in your life sometime when you really, truly messed up and it made you a better version of yourself and made you update your belief systems or your life anyway?
Yeah, I mean, tons. Like, I like literally, like, you know, there's so many, any business owner, entrepreneur, operator, there's so many times where you just, you miss the, you know what I mean? You missed the goal, or you didn't attain where it is that you wanted to go. I thought of a couple ones that kind of came to my mind right away. I had a massive interview. I remember it was with Neil Patel. Nothing against Neil, because once again, whose fault is it if it's a bad interview, right? It's your fault. You're the host. Yeah. You're running the show, right? Yeah, exactly. So I did not prep Neil properly, and I also did not do the research properly, right? And it was kind of like one of those interviews where, you know, we said it was going to go for about half an hour or so, or about 40 minutes. And I think it finished in like 16 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You ran out of stuff to say.
Like, we finished and I was
like, before,
I don't know if I'm going to post this. Right. And I've talked to Neil about this since, right? We've met a couple other times outside of the podcast. And, you know, it's just funny, right? And it's once again, taking responsibility of it. But that's happened. And you know what? It's okay. And I post that up because I said, we teach podcasting. We help entrepreneurs be able to launch their own top 100 podcasts and be able to make money from it. And so we say, hey, here is an example of what not to do.
What not to do.
Yeah, here's a perfect example of what not to do. Do the opposite of this, right? Yeah. And a lot of times we go, oh, that's so funny, right? Because once again, it's showing that you're human. It's showing that you're making mistakes, you know? A really recent one, like this happens this is just life, by the way, okay? It is not just like, you don't wake up and you go, oh, I'm going to have a failure today. You know what I mean? What I'm saying is like, it's just life, okay? So, this happened like literally 2-3 weeks ago. Okay. We were running, one of the very first events that we've ever put together like this. It was kind of like it's a one-day mastermind for business owners, creators, entrepreneurs that are in the city of Toronto. Okay. So Max, I would have sent you an invite, but you know, like I knew you were overseas, but look, we had people that flew in from this. Okay. We get about 14, 15 entrepreneurs in the room. We want to keep it intimate because that way everybody gets a chance to kind of share. It's like a half mastermind, half content type of day, right? And long story short, my girlfriend and I, she was helping me out for this event, right? She doesn't usually help me, but we had volunteers that essentially something came up, they couldn't make it, you know, 2 days, you know, about 36 hours before the event, right? So it was like, that should have been a sign right there, right? I was like, okay, maybe this is not going to go corner. So, long story short, my girlfriend and I, we show up. It's a Sunday. We do all these events on a Sunday, right? And 8 a.m. Sunday, we show up to the building. We got the room and everything. We just want to set up. We're going to, we got notebooks for everybody. We got, some little things. And the security guard stops us and says, hey, you guys can't go in. And it's like, no, you don't understand. We have an event. It's on the 6th floor. We got 14 people coming. They're coming in like 40 minutes. We got to set up. You don't understand. And he goes, no, you don't understand. I was like, what do you mean we don't understand? He goes, the building lost power last night.
No way.
At 11 p.m.
No.
And it's Saturday, Sunday, right? Like, so nobody's coming until, Sunday afternoon. And we're like, what? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And he goes, you guys can go upstairs. So then, stupidly, we said we didn't believe him. And we went upstairs, right? It is like, Max, it is like a scene out of a scary movie. You know what I mean? Our cell phone lights are on.
Cell phone lights on.
The whole hallway is pitch black. We have a
Oh,
videographer coming.
Yeah.
We paid for a photographer as well. And it's like, what are we going to do? You know what I mean? And so in those moments, it requires you to be calm. It requires you to say, hey, what are the alternatives here? What can I do about this? Right? Luckily, we were able to switch the venue within about 10 minutes. And we messaged everyone. We took an Uber, we went to the next place. And we only started about 7 or 10 minutes late.
Oh, wow. So great response. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is life. Like, and I planned everything for this event, right? Like, we had the seating chart, you know what I mean? We had, these people were going to come in at this time. We had speakers coming, like 8:30, we're messaging everybody in the Uber, in the cab.
Oh my gosh. Like,
it's all changing, right? But it's all about how are you going to choose to show up in these situations, So those are just like a couple kind of like funny ones that I think of. But let me tell you, it happens a lot.
I bet.
The time.
Yeah, I think it was Mike Tyson, right? I'm paraphrasing right now, but he said something along the lines of like, it's great to have a plan until you get punched in the teeth, right?
Exactly.
Like,
and then the plan goes out the window.
I mean, it's the reality of it, right? Like, things are gonna happen. But great response, really. You're able to still have that meeting. So love that. I think it's really powerful to really understand for everyone starting out within athletics or business or school, wherever it is. Like, even the people on top, and that's really one of the things. One of the main themes that I found in this podcast is like even the people that quote unquote like made it, right? Like people like you, people like Olympic athletes often. They're all struggling with the same kind of things in life, right? They're still struggling with the same drama, the same problems, the same, power outages, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like it never stops, right? It's not like you're never going to get there and then like you made it and everything's easy. Like, it's still always like figuring out every single day, like what I have to do, how am I going to accomplish this? How am I going to overcome this problem every single day? And I think that's just part of the journey, and it makes it more fun, right? I mean, it's a good stories afterwards.
Yeah, it makes for a funny story. Seth Godin was one of the first people I heard talk about this, where he says it's not about getting rid of the fear, right? But it's about learning how to dance with the fear.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's not about, if you're going through anxiety, it's not about overcoming anxiety. That's like, yes, you want to do that, but it's about learning how to be able to use it in your life. It's about knowing what works for you when you're in that stage. If you've gone through any type of pain, any type of trauma, if you have a chip on your shoulder, it's not about overcoming those things. It's about using those things, leverage those things, right? It makes you that much better, and it adds so much more color to your life and who you are.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I always think of like the kind of lifeline, right? Like if like most people want it like this, they want it straight, just even the whole time, right? But in true life, like it goes up and down, again and again. I think the more ups and downs, the more downs you can get, the more colorful and richer your life will be, like you said. So I love that. Mm-hmm. Now, Jay, over the last few years since starting the podcast, what is like one belief or habit or behavior that has improved your life the most?
One habit or belief. I mean, I think the biggest one, and this is, truth be told, this is something that I'm working on in the new year, in 2019, which is consistency. That's it. Like, yeah. I think a lot of times people know, like people have the knowledge, people have the skills, people know what they need to be doing, but how consistent are you at executing those things, right? So it's not like a mental, like that for me, if you could figure that out, I think that's going to be the key for so many of your viewers and so many of your listeners. It's not about adding in, you know what I mean? A lot of times in the journey, It has nothing to do with that. A lot of times in the journey, it's about actually subtracting out all the other beliefs and all the other crap that you tell yourself, that you're not good enough, that no one will be there, no one will listen, there's no value that you have to share. Who are you to think that you wanted to be able to do this? It's to subtract all of that, and it's to be consistent in some of the things that we talked about in this interview already.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I actually started doing writing give up lists, right? Like rather than only goal setting lists, like things I would give up, right? Like whether it's television or social media, whatever it is, because so many times we only have those 24 hours in front of us, right? And so if you can subtract the negative, right, the negative beliefs, the negative behaviors, there's so much more room for the more positive. Now, Jay, okay, so before I ask my final question, where can listeners connect with you online?
Well, I think since we are on your podcast, and I know you do some awesome videos on your channel as well, the two biggest places that you could follow me on this journey is one, the podcast, The Inner Changemaker, and two, my YouTube channel, Wong TV. Those are the two spots that we put as much emphasis on creating new content on. And so if you want to follow along the journey, I mean, Max, you had some great suggestions, the Vanessa Van Edwards interview.
Oh, for sure. That one's amazing. Yeah.
That one's awesome. So,
I'll put up the link to that. Yeah.
Yeah. If people want to just go and check out some of those resources, I think it's going to be quite beneficial for your listeners over there.
Awesome. Now to my final question. And I know you mentioned it before, right? About asking all of your guests about what is a change maker really, right? I do this.
Yeah.
What does mental mastery mean to you, Jay?
Mental mastery really just means mastering yourself, right? I think it's mastery of one, right? Mastery of you. It's mastery of your mindset when something is on fire in your business, figuratively, right? When the power goes out and there's no, right? Like you did not plan for that situation. When you get that call on that Wednesday afternoon of something that you just had, it didn't seem like it came out of nowhere and it wasn't fair and the situation's not fair. The economy might not be fair. It's choosing how you're going to react to those things. Are you going to be reactive like most people, 99.8% of people, or are you going to choose to be proactive? Are you going to find a solution? Are you going to find a way to be able to do it, right? Which type of person are you? I think when you think about mental mindset and that mentality, that's really what comes to mind for me.